Today I'm going to do a little tutorial about hand drill fire making for my friend in New York. The first thing about hand drills is materials. That's what's going to make it possible for you to make fire with 2 sticks. So let's take a look at some. There are materials that were used all over the United States and the world for that matter for making fire with 2 sticks. Where I'm located in California, one of my favorites is called mule fat. It's I think they also call it seep willow. You can see here it's a shrub. It grows up in seasonal creek beds. So when there's like a heavy rain, this will turn into a creek, and these plants love that. And they grow here, and as you can see, they grow very straight. See this shoot here, right here? It's growing almost completely straight. This happens a lot because of damage to the tree when the creeks come. Sometimes they'll get leveled, and they'll fire up these shoots nice and straight. With this, I can cut down and almost not even need to straighten. It's so straight. But sometimes you have to straighten them with a little bit of fire. Let me show you some more mule's fat here. There's a big stand of it. You're looking for branches like this. They spring straight out of the ground from a root system. And look how straight that is. I've made a couple arrows out of these as well. I think they're useful for that. But as a fire material, they're best. Here's another plant I want to show you. This also likes dried up creek beds or seasonal creek beds. You see all these dead leaves back here on these stems. There, here. This plant is great as a tinder material. It's called mugwort. I'm not sure of any other names for it. I think it's on the East Coast too. I'll have to check, I'm not 100% sure. But it's all over in the west here, and I think I've seen it in some of the mountain states as well. There's just this huge patch of it, and what happens is the bottom of the plant starts to drop its leaves and turn brown. And those brown leaves, when you roll them up, create a very thick web-like sort of sticky, not sticky, but nice tinder ball, which I'll show you in 1 second. I'll gather some and show you what it looks like. And gathering these dead leaves doesn't hurt the plant. I just leave the green leaves alone so that they come back next year. Alright, I don't have a camera stand, so I'm doing the best I can here, but these are the leaves that I just collected from the mugwort. Just regular leaves. If you ball them up and roll them like this, it starts to form this ball that's all sort of stuck together like this. And you see like how it gets kind of webby, and see all that fluff in there. I don't know if you can see it, but it makes a great start of a tinder bundle. So this is where I put my coal after I get a hand drill fire, because this essentially becomes a coal extender. This will burn slowly like a cigarette for hours if I compress it. And rumor has it that some natives would carry their fire like that, so they wouldn't have to start a fire every time. They would have a huge tube of this, and they would put a coal in one end, and when they got to camp, you know, maybe it would burn halfway down, maybe not, but then they could just take this piece of tinder and drop it in a bigger tinder bundle and start their fire without having do the hand drill again. So this is what we're going to use to get started today. Speaking about coal extender, this is a fine coal extender as well. So you can see that stuff will burn right up real quick. But when it's compressed like this in its stock form, it's dense. It's sort of like a phone book. So it burns, but it mostly smolders until you break it apart like this. So I've heard of stories, I don't know if they're true, of natives carrying a head like this of cattail with one end of it smoldering and just smoldering down all day until they get to camp. When they get to camp, they can start a fire straight from the cattail instead of using the hand drill again. So I'm going to try that at some point. I haven't tried it yet, but I do know that this makes really good tinder, among other things. So keep that in mind. That's on the East Coast too. I know you're probably tired of seeing plants here, but this is seep willow again, or mule's fat. It's growing together with mugwort, which is convenient. One important thing to note here, I'm telling you that this is a good material for fire making, but when it's green like this, in other words, when the plant's living, it's worthless for fire making. You have to dry it out first until all the moisture leaves the plant. You're not going to be making any fire with it. Contrary to what Bear Grylls says, who's a fucking idiot and filmed a show where he cut a piece of branch like this off of a green tree and started a fire with it, which is physically impossible. If you were out in the woods and you needed to make a fire by hand drill, your options would be pretty limited. If you can see here, this stick is dead. It's not terribly straight, but if you had to make a fire right now and you weren't prepared, you'd want to look for something like that. A dead standing stick like this. Maybe you'd get lucky and you could start a fire. But, you know, as with everything else in the wilderness, preparedness is always better. Alright, I promise I'll shut up about mule fat after this, but this is a tree, or a bush rather, that I regularly trim for fire sticks, which increasingly makes straighter and straighter fire sticks. I don't know if you can see those in the middle, but they're almost as straight as milled lumber. So the more you trim a tree, the better it gets. Here we see the same plant, mule's fat, which doesn't have a single straight branch on it. Partially because it's probably never been knocked down by the creek or trimmed by people. And supposedly this is one of the reasons why when Europeans showed up in California, they described it as like a groomed garden, because it was a groomed garden. Native Americans regularly harvested plants and, helped to groom things. And so it actually makes this plant grow straighter when you trim it. Not that the plant cares, but for our purposes, it helps.